All right, excellent. So again, thank you all for joining us. We're thrilled to have you for our reading tonight for our newly branded reading series. So we're now calling this series Kentucky Voices, and so our first Kentucky voice in the newly branded series. We're still bringing featured poets in every 2 months. But our first one is Katerina Stoykova. Katerina is the author of Between a Birdcage and a Birdhouse. It's right here. And The Poet's Guide to Publishing. We had somebody else. Oh, it's showing up fuzzy on mine. Oh well. So Birdcage and Birdhouse, published by University Press. Poet's Guide to Publishing, published by McFarlane. Both of those published this year. Katerina, I think a lot of folks know, is also the founder and senior editor of Accents Publishing, also creator of the Accents podcast, which broadcasts on WUKY out of Lexington. And Katerina likes to stay busy because she is also the, excuse me, the director for the Kentucky Book Festival, which will be coming up in, I believe, early November. I want to say November 2nd is when got that right, when the book festival will be. Book festival is always a great time to meet authors and see what's been published. And so Katerina's been organizing that for this year. And she is also the director for the Center for the Book here in Kentucky. So Katerina wears a lot of different hats. But tonight she is a poet and is going to be sharing her poetry with us, and also a little bit from her craft book. So and then at the end, after Katerina reads, we will have some time for questions. So so if you please save questions till after then, we'll have plenty of time for that. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Katerina.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you all for being here on this Tuesday evening. I am very happy to spend time with you and to see old friends and new friends. And I will be reading to a mixture of people who have heard my work, people who I don't think have seen me read or heard me read. So that's exciting also. And until like 7 p.m., I hadn't decided what to read. And then I thought, okay, well, I am an immigrant, and there have been a lot of talk about immigrant and food. So I think I'm going to read my immigrant food poems, or some of them, or poems where food is featured in some way. So here I start with the first poem of my first book. It's a bilingual book called The Air Around the Butterfly, and I'm going to read you first in Bulgarian. Често ми се иска да съм картоф, да имам очи отворени във всички посоки, да не се страхувам да влизам в земята, да съм въпрос на живот или смърт за някого. Often I wish I were a potato, eyes opened in all directions, unafraid of the cold earth, the difference between life and death for somebody. So I find a lot of fruits and vegetables and cookies and other strange edibles in my work today as I was browsing to find food poems. So here is one based on a true story. Grandpa refuses to visit. That's a pre-immigration poem. The Cold War is over, but he is yet to thaw his kernel heart. For as long as we have an American visiting, Grandpa won't be stopping by. Dressed in her Sunday best, Grandma delivered the message with homemade Bulgarian cookies. So the previous poem was on a true story, based on a true story. Next one is pure fiction. And those who know me and okay, I'll fess up, I don't cook. The very, very sweet man that I married knows that very well. So the poem is called The Immigrant Baking an Apple Pie. You know, that's the fiction part. You very well know you are not going to like it. You hate pie crust, warm apples, cinnamon. Nonetheless, you dive into the cookbook, convert the recipe to metric units, and craft the perfect pie. Your children love it. Here is one tiny poem in 2 languages. Как се режат загуби. Накълцайте ги ситно с марули и горчиви зеленчуци. Поръсете ги с сол, смесете ги с оцет, измийте си ръцете. How to cut losses. Chop them finely with lettuce and bitter greens. Top with salt, mix with vinegar, wash your hands. And now I'll read to you the last poem from this book called The Porcupine of Mind. Food. Tomatoes bring love. Potatoes raise consciousness. Onions spring compassion. Mulberries promote change. Corn is a generous mother. Artichokes are modest knights. You cannot love thy neighbor without eating your vegetables. You can stop world wars with the kindness of a single fruit cup. Wouldn't it be nice if we could stop world wars? So, as I said, strange edibles, I do need your sense of humor for that next poem. It's from Second Place, this tiny little thing with bilingual poems. It is poems from the film Proud Citizen. If you want to see it, or if you haven't seen it, you can ask me about it. So this poem is called Biting. As a small child, I bit everyone I was not afraid of. I snapped sharp jaws over fat arms and cheeks, and pleased, kept them squeezed while everybody screamed. I often bit Rachito because she couldn't say R. Her grandmother tried to keep her away from me, but I cried, repented, pledged I would never bite again, and meant it for the most part. Rachutu died from childhood cancer, and her teary grandmother gave me all her toys to play with, since no kids would come near me. So now I'll read several poems from this book. A lot of it is a love letter to America, this country I immigrated in and call my own now. And this one is from a real, is trying to describe a real encounter very soon after I immigrated. America, do you remember? 3 weeks upon landing, I sobbed in the basement of the English Language Multicultural Institute out of the most confused loneliness known to my being. A computer technician named Mitch found me, took me to the cafe, and bought me my first chocolate chip cookie. Everything got better from there. Honestly, I was surprised that I liked the cookie so much because I've never been into cookies. Europeans don't eat cookies all that much. So next tiny poem might sound familiar. You will know who that's after. So much depends upon the kindness of others to make a foreign country yours, white chickens and all. Visit. I visit my homeland the way a snail tries to fit back into his old shell. Day after day, I writhe inside, counterclockwise. The shell is rough and narrow, opens sores on coddled parts. But I persist, eat terator, cry over graves until I conform to my old contours. Finally, I am here. Snail is the most beautiful Bulgarian word, says my son, who is studying the language. I thought it meant love. So, snail and love, Ohlyv and Lyubov. I hope you can hear the similarity in the two words in Bulgarian, Ohlyv and Lyubov. And the food that I mentioned in this poem, Tarator, it's cold yogurt soup with cucumbers, garlic, and oil. I don't know how that sounds to you, but it's delicious and it's my favorite thing to eat. Once I bit into an apple and said, he and I will be finished by the time this apple rots. I kept it at my desk. The bite marks curled inward, the white flesh scabbed towards its softness. This lasted days upon days. Then I said to myself, I want to save this apple, so I locked it in the fridge. Already the apple was leaning into its wound, head first without a face, in its cold home, furrows growing deeper. From time to time, I would pick up the apple and assess. It's okay, I would say. It's okay, considering. I hope you're following the food trail throughout these, right? Okay. The entire day I loved someone. When I returned home, I knew it wasn't you. Wasn't me either. Meanwhile, love had seeped into the cracks of the parquet floor, between the rubber goosebumps of the slippers. Meanwhile, love was left in a cab or on a chair, or it retreated into the lifeline of a glove. We sat down for dinner. I reached and touched your face over 2 plates of rice and tomatoes. There were no words, but the television and the question, why am I here, pulsed in the air while the silence continued. When we leave a place, the toughest thing is leaving people behind. So this poem is for my best friend in Bulgaria. Better for Tony. The time I left my best friend behind was a time of hope for something better than a best friend, was a time of hope for true love, was a time of hope for a better life, better than a best friend, better than her true love, better than a life with my best friend, better than holding hands on busted streets, better than sharing the cheapest ice cream, better than her light body spooning mine in the hotel room by the US consulate, better than our unconditional love, unless I find something better. The time I left my best friend behind, there were parts of me I left her. I left her. Now leave. I will read one more poem from here, one more food poem, so to say. And then I want to do other things. So this poem has some code switching. And it's a mirror poem, and then you will hear some Bulgarian inside it, and I hope you will understand what everything means by the time the poem is over. Imagine a raw egg. Още в черупката. The shell is whole. После я чупиш на две. You do that carefully so that the contents remain intact. Then you try pouring the egg into just one of its jagged cups, but now it no longer fits, so you must either leave some behind or never stop going back and forth. Така се усеща имиграцията. Представи си сурово яйце, still in its shell. черупката е цяла. Then you break it in two. Правиш го внимателно, така че съдържанието да остане невредимо. После се опитваш да прелееш яйцето в само една от неговите назъбени чашки, но то вече не се побира, така че трябва или да изоставиш част от него, или да не спираш да го придвижваш напред-назад. This is what it feels like to immigrate. Thank you. I want to read you two translations. I enjoy translating. I even did this anthology of contemporary Bulgarian poetry. It took me 2 years to select everything, to translate it and edit it and to publish it. And I can honestly say that I will never do anything like that again. Okay? So, but within 2 or 3 weeks, we're sending to the printer a book called The Chaos of Desire by Marin Budakov, and I selected the poems and I translated them. And here is one poem that I want to share with you, and also has the traces of food in it. Unmailed letter. I went to the executioner's house, which utilizes the last surviving partition of the fortress's wall. You know, those stones were pillaged so we could build spacious mansions, so you could discuss with the steward the menu of the inaugural ball, how best to light the stoves, so I could calculate the next business deal while playing solitaire and waiting for dinner. By the way, the executioner turned out to be a really nice man. I stayed all day to pester him. I didn't allow him to get any work done. I am yet to leave. So next year, I am translating and publishing a book of translated poems by Olya Stoyanova, another Bulgarian author, and I'm going to read to you a poem of hers. Small stories. She likes to write notes. I love you to her husband. I'm thinking of you to her child. Thank you to her mother. It's a little ludicrous, actually, but her loved ones don't speak of these things, even pretend they've never discovered anything in their pockets. Still, she's been doing this a while, since the day she read somewhere that a woman jumped from the 14th floor and in her pocket there had been a note with the words 5 eggs and a loaf of bread. I probably shouldn't have left that poem till the end, but I did. I should have put something more optimistic and uplifting. So now I guess the optimistic and uplifting needs to come from the Poet's Guide to Publishing. You know, it is a how-to book, how to conceive, arrange, edit, publish, and market a book of poetry. And in it, I have tried to put everything I know, or as much of it as I could describe, in some sort of a helpful way. And I want want to read to you two passages from it. One of them is a concept that I think would be helpful to people who are working on arranging manuscript. And this is from the second part, the part of arranging, and it comes right after I speak about how overwhelming it could be to get started, the staggering number of ways that you can go about it. Reducing the number of combinations with bonded pairs. Those of you who have owned pet ferrets know that ferrets are often sold two at a time. That's because when they get attached to one another, they start doing everything together. They sleep snuggled together, drink water together, play together. The pet shop employees call them a bonded pair and sell both or neither. Admittedly, it could be a sales trick, though I was happy to succumb. By the way, I owned 4 ferrets at some point in my life. I got the idea of bonded pairs in poetry when I noticed that certain poems seemed to stick together no matter how much I rearranged the rest of the manuscript. So, regardless of how many combinations existed in the manuscript, these 2 poems were glued to one another. I considered them a bonded pair and treated them as a single poem. Then I tried to match as many bonded pairs as I could within the set of poems I was facing. Once I bonded a pair, I would start moving that pair from place to place as a unit, both poems or neither. Thus, if you start with 26 poems and decide on 13 bonded pairs, in reality, you're effectively working with only 13 poems. 13 is much easier to arrange than 26. Such a distributed approach reduces the pressure of starting at the beginning and building a manuscript to the end. As I said before, many poets feel overwhelmed because they don't know how to start. In other words, by using the concept of bonded pairs, you can make significant progress on your manuscript without having a clear idea of what you're doing. Strive to find as many bonded pairs as you're able. Some of the pairs might actually turn out to be trios, even quartets, which would further speed up the process. Then you can try to bond some of the bonded pairs and fuse them into bigger chunks. Every time you make a choice about placement or bonding, you are reducing the possibilities. And then I'll give you one paragraph on how to bond poems. I believe that many poets intuitively know how to do this already. Most poems naturally stick together thematically. One of the poems may ask a question and the other could answer it. One may describe an action and the other may continue this action. One may make a statement and the other may serve as a commentary. One of the poems may prove a point and the other may contradict it, since contrast also could be a bonding factor. And if you're reading the book, you can see a brilliant example by Marianne Peel about her experience with bonded pairs. By the way, the first several drafts of this book were completed through the bootcamp, poetry book bootcamp that I've been teaching for years, and I included many people, as many as wanted to participate. And I see here several people who contributed to this book with their examples, and I'm very grateful. I'll read one more passage from the book, if you would indulge me. And that is the only place where I give some personal history. But I want to read it to you. Forgive me for a few personal paragraphs. I started attending writing groups in elementary school. I remember walking into the room and everyone seemed giant. They were high school students. I felt out of my league and mostly confused by the conversation, so after a few meetings, I gave up. It was too soon for me. Several years later, I returned. I was in high school myself and had published a poem in a national literary journal. At that point, I started attending weekly writing groups and workshopping poems. I regularly received reading recommendations, studied other poets' work, and shared my own. The weekly meetings kept me on a schedule. I would try to bring something every week, and even if I didn't, I still went, for these poets became my friends. I had found people like me, even though we were all different ages, from me, the youngest, to retirees and every age in between. Different walks of life too, from me, a high schooler, to college students, soldiers, a colonel, a pilot, a nurse, a sailor, a couple of teachers, a librarian. That pilot, decades later, became the president of Bulgaria. This is no joke. See what writers' groups can do for you. That sailor became my first ex-husband. See what writers' groups can do to you. Not only did I attend poetry discussions, but I also regularly participated in group activities, organized readings, trips into various cities for events and meetings with other creative people. I became a part of a community, my first literary community of sharing and caring. As I'm writing this, I'm overcome with gratitude and happiness at having received this gift of poetry and genuine friendship. That experience left a mark on my development, not only as a poet, but also as a human being. I cannot imagine life without participating in and contributing to a literary community. Fast forward to 2007, when I, with the help of songwriter Colin Watkins, started a group in Lexington, Poesia. That means poetry in Bulgarian. Free and open to everyone who loves the art of writing. We met every Thursday at 7 p.m. in Common Grounds coffee shop. Whoever wanted to participate could show up, typically around 10 people. I met hundreds of poets that way, made wonderful friends. The group meant so much to so many people. We had our principles written up on a card, kind of like a membership card. Poet Jay McCoy prepared it and gave each of us a copy. I have the photos of the copy here, of the card. I included this information because I believe we need each other. Poetry is often written in solitude and shared in community. And in order to have a true creative balance, a poet needs a community, even if it consists of just two other members of a writer's group. And I'm going to stop here. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Katerina. It's been wonderful. We will open up to questions. So what I'd like to do, there are two ways we could take questions. If someone wants to put a question in the chat, please do so, and we'll read your question. Also, since we've got a lot of folks here, if you do want to share a question, if you would go to the bottom of your Zoom where it says react and click that, there is a raise hand function. It'll raise your hand and it'll bring your screen to where we can see you and we can call on you. So we'll open it up to questions now. Yes,
For all the
Chuck.
wonderful comments. Okay.
Hello. Oh, that was so lovely. Thank you so much, Katerina. I would just like to hear you say a few words about what you experience as the differences between the music of your native language and the music of English as a second language.
I think that it's much easier to rhyme in Bulgarian because there are lots of vowels, or the position of the vowels is more predictable. Like the word tarator, right? Vowel, consonant. While in English, that's not the case. I think it's less predictable where the vowel will be. When I was, like in a past life, I was studying Italian, and when I would switch around the channels, out the first few words, I would be confused. Are they talking in Bulgarian or in Italian? Just because the music is the same with the language, the long words with lots of vowels. So that is one difference. And the other difference is that English language has more words, and it's easier to find synonyms to have, you can really have better language precision in English, while in Bulgaria you need to have a better metaphor precision, because you just need to describe it with more words, I guess. I hope that helps.
Well, thank you. That's really interesting.
Thanks.
Jody.
Thank you. Thank you, Katerina. You're such a gift. So brilliant. Thank you. My question is a little bit related to Chuck's. How has translating these other poems impacted your process and your poems?
Hey, I think did you guys know Frederick Smoke? I think many people either knew him or have heard of him. He served as Kentucky Poet Laureate at some point. So I listened to a lecture by him at Spalding, where I know Jody from, and he said that translation is the closest possible reading of a poem. And that's true. And close reading of a poem really teaches us something. And it's like acting, it's like ventriloquism, it's linguistic ventriloquism from one language to another. And you learn to think like somebody and to speak with somebody like somebody. So how did that, it taught me a lot. It really taught me a lot. But I also think that translating from one language to another, translating from Bulgarian to English taught me something, but also translating from English into Bulgarian teaches me something as well. I did learn more English. I did learn more English recently, like 4 years ago. I was translating a book by Emily Grossholtz, a fabulous American poet who lives in Pennsylvania. And her English was so complicated that I was surprised how much I had to learn after, almost 30 years in the United States. I think that I don't know if I answered, but that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question now from Flora.
Hi, Katerina. Thank you so much for that lovely reading. It's always a joy to hear you read. I was intrigued by the fictional poem with the fictional pie. And I wondered if you could talk some more about the approach you're using there with using a fictional maybe scenario, but also to get to an emotional truth. Because the poem feels very true to me. So thank you. If you could talk about that, please.
Well, starting with a metaphor, I mean, the pie was a metaphor about life in America. And there is nothing as American as apple pie, right? I happen to not like pie, never liked pie, just never did. Even now I'm gluten intolerant, so I can't even eat pie. But, certain foods I could get used to and certain foods I never warmed up to. So to me, that was about, any life you choose, there will be things that you like and things that you don't like. And you just make the most of what you have. And that was my way of describing immigration.
It's lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marianne.
Hi, Katerina. Thank you for your reading. It was beautiful. Could you talk a little bit about some poets that inspire you that you would like us to check out and read? People you go back to occasionally or a lot?
So there are people who have really inspired and shaped my writing that have not been translated into English. And maybe it's my job to do that little by little, as much as I can. So I can speak about some authors who are familiar or have work in English language. Here is one author whom I really like. This is Rea Armantraut. Do you like her work? So this is her latest book, and she has influenced me quite a bit. I like her pairing poems or parts of poems in a way that make both fragments, so to say, larger. So there is someone who I read. I like Simon Armitage, the English poet. I don't know if I don't think he's as popular here, but he's really popular in England and in Europe. From the American authors, other American authors. I've always liked Charles Simic, or, as properly should be Simic, Charles Simic. Actually, his name is Dusan Simic. So he has been an influence on me as well. And someone very familiar to you, Marianne, Emily Dickinson, she has been a very big influence. These are the first people that I come to, that I could think of. Yeah.
Thank you, Katerina.
Mhm.
Chuck, do you have another question, or you just still have your virtual hand up?
Sorry, I'm just
No worries.
slow on the draw. So
No, all good. Do we have any other questions for Katerina?
I appreciate very much your being here and listening and asking questions. Oh, I see that Sam has a question.
Hey there. I just want you to know that I'm cooking while I'm listening to this, and I had such a good time cooking while listening to you. My question is, when did you know that you absolutely had to be a publisher? What drew you to this field? And when was the moment when you were like, this is it, I love it?
Okay, so I was sitting in the audience at Spalding University. I was at a talk, and the publisher of Red Hand Press was there, and she was talking about publishing, and she was talking about, well, if you're going to be making a press, then you have to think about distribution. Then she talks a little more, and then if you're thinking of starting your own press, you have to think about this and this. And every time she would say, if you're thinking of starting your own press, I would say, like, who in their right mind would want to do anything like that? And then I would catch myself saying to myself something like, no, don't do this. No, I don't want to do that. So I was allowing myself to hear the no, but I wasn't allowing myself to hear, the desire. I was just being conscious to the resistance until at some point, I was like, wait a minute, let me tell myself the truth here, and I want to do it. And then, yes, I'm doing it. And then once I said yes, then I was at peace, and things started happening very quickly and very smoothly. Like, for example, I would need to buy, let's say, paper, and as I'm sitting on the, in line, and like Staples, somebody, like a complete stranger, would come and would hand me this, do you need this coupon? Could you use this coupon? And that would be a coupon for the thing that I'm buying. And so I felt supported by many people and the universe at large. And I think that accents has been one of the big joys and the big loves of my life. I'm very grateful for it.
All right, do we have any final questions for Katerina?
I think Mary.
Mary couldn't find the little hand to put up.
There's Mary.
Okay. Katerina, I know that you also started a prose group at one time. Do you have any ideas? You've done the one prose book that I'm aware of. But do you have any thoughts about going from poetry to another genre? Or what do you see down the line, I guess is what I'm saying.
For me or in general?
For you,
Okay.
the pup just arrived.
Yeah, the prose group, I have lost track of what they're doing, but they might still be meeting. At some point, we were meeting twice a week, once on Tuesday for prose and once on Thursday for poetry. For prose, actually, I didn't arrange it that way. You know, you have control of what you write, but you don't have control over when things get published. So next month, like October 21st, is when my novella will come out in Bulgarian. So for now, I have no plans to translate it in English, but who knows? So yeah, I've written prose. This year has been an embarrassment of riches of poetry book, nonfiction book, and a fiction book. What I would like to do is I would like to write a memoir. I have like 400 pages, first draft, which I think that if I'm serious about it, I'm gonna have to abandon and start over.
Marianne,
yeah.
you have the last question.
Okay, Katerina, I was just wondering, you take on a lot of leadership roles and things that take a great deal of time and energy and communication with other people, which you're wonderful at. How do you make time for your own writing, especially for your poetry? Do you have a daily or a weekly practice or a monthly way of looking at things to give space for your own writing? Just curious how you balance all of that.
Oh, Marianne, it's been tough. The year and a half has been tough. Full-time job has been very difficult to balance with my writing. So I haven't done a great job the last year and a half. I'm sorry to say. What's important? I don't know. I will give several lines here. I'll give several lines about writing and a writer's block, but you need to leave space in your head. And what I have found out in writing poetry is that in writing poetry, you need a lot of me. I'm talking the proverbial you. You need a lot of time, not only for writing, but also for not writing. You need space in your head. So in the back of this book, there are some lines about writing, some quotes about writing, my own quotes that I want to say if you want. So if you don't write when you don't have time for it, you won't write when you do have time for it. So for example, you have been busy. Now I have one day off. I'm gonna write. What do you think? Do you think that's gonna happen? Think again. And then writing is not a matter of time, but a matter of space. If you don't keep space in your head for writing, you won't write, even if you have the time. And then talking about writing is not writing in the same way talking about the gym is not exercising. what I have found out, and I have studied that quite a bit, is that, okay, now I'm going to talk about me because I don't want to make assumptions for other people. Let's say I have many aspects of my character, and different aspects want different things. This aspect wants to be the director of the book festival. This aspect wants to go in a cave and not talk to other people. This aspect wants to write poetry. This aspect wants to write fiction. This aspect wants to publish books. This aspect wants to just talk about herself on public, social media, etc. For me to be happy, I need to be able to give every one of those aspects a turn. While everybody else is cheering this person in the middle, this aspect in the middle, if they're fighting it out, that's going to be very difficult for me. But I have to make sure that all my personalities kind of make friends with one another and support the one who is dancing in the middle. This is what I think right now.
Thank you. That's a great analogy. Thank you. It's very visual. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Miriam.
Appreciate you too.
Katerina, thank you so much for being here and sharing with us and sharing your thoughts. It has been wonderful. I just give you a round of applause for everything you've shared tonight. You're a real treasure for our poetry community, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Folks, before we wrap up, I want to share a couple things. Our next monthly reading will be October 15th. That'll be an open mic. And if you go out to our website, I think the sign up is already out there. So you could sign up to do open mic that night. Our annual conference will be October 25th through the 27th. Our keynote speaker is Glennis Richmond, who is the Poet Laureate of Greenville, South Carolina. And I think it's going to be a wonderful conference. Registration should be opening up around October 1st. It's pretty much an all virtual conference. The only thing that we've got in person is we do have an in-person open mic here in Lexington at the Farish Theater, the Central Library. So if you're able to participate in that, we'd love to have you, and please sign up for the conference when registration opens. And then our next featured reader will be Deirdre White on November 19th. So we will get information out about Deirdre's reading when we get closer to that date. So lots of stuff going on with KSPS, and appreciate everybody being here tonight. Thank you all for being here. Thank you again, Katerina, and hope to see everybody soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Katerina. It was so good to
Thank you all.
enjoyed that so much. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Bill, would you let me read my comments here? I'd appreciate.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Everybody was so sweet.
I can't copy that many. I was going to try. Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much. I'm gonna hang up now. Appreciate you.
All
Bye,
right.
Katrina. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.